Good morning and welcome to the Daily Aus. It's Friday the 1st of May. I'm Elliot, Lawry.
I'm Emma Gillespie.
Rebel Wilson is back in court this week, this time as the defendant in one of the most high-profile defamation cases in recent history. It all centres on the production of an Aussie film called The Deb, which marks Wilson's debut as a director. If you've been following along and finding the case a little bit confusing, don't worry. On today's podcast, we're going to go through everything you need to know, how we got here, what's happened at trial so far, and what comes next.
Elliot, I'm so glad we're talking about this today. First of all, because I'm personally deeply interested and it's great to chat to you about these kinds of stories. But secondly, because you mentioned in your intro that this has been a really confusing case. There are so many elements to it. And I know you did a really great job of stepping this out in your written piece last week, but there have been even more developments since then. For those who haven't been following this as closely as you, I think maybe a good place to start is Rebel Wilson, a very familiar name to our audience.
Yeah, I think a good place to start with these types of cases is just who's involved. The big name on it is Rebel Wilson. She's, one of our biggest entertainment exports of the past couple of years. She's best known for playing the character Fat Amy in the Pitch Perfect trilogy, but she also made appearances in, Bridesmaids and Jojo Rabbit. With this case in particular, she is entwined in it because she directed this film, The Deb.
Yep.
That one is currently in cinemas now, and we'll talk a little bit more about the actual production of it later. But she's also known as being quite a litigious person. Her name has been tied up in legal cases a lot over the years.
Yep.
She herself actually sued a media company here in Australia for defamation. So she's been on the other side of defamation proceedings.
And she has a law degree, right?
Yeah.
That comes up a lot.
She's a trained lawyer.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So she is a trained lawyer, a very famous Aussie comedian. And she is the one being sued?
Yeah, that's correct. And she's being sued by someone named Charlotte McInnes. She's also an Australian actress and she's a singer as well. And she actually plays the lead in the film that Wilson directed.
Okay.
So what you need to know about her is she's roughly 27 years old. She's from Western Australia. And she brought this case because she's arguing that Wilson publicly identified her as a victim of sexual harassment without her consenting to that. And she's also said that the claims that Wilson made are completely false. It's a bit of a confusing one because she's saying, I've been defamed by being described as a victim of sexual harassment.
Yep.
It can often normally be that people get sued because they are described as sexual harassers, but this one is where I think people get tripped up a little bit.
Yeah.
She's rather saying that claim that Wilson made has overshadowed her career, and what was meant to be, a big launch into the spotlight with his starring role in The Deb was clouded by what happened with Wilson.
So McInnes is saying that Wilson called her a victim of sexual harassment, A, without her consent, and B, that is a lie, that
Correct.
The sexual harassment claim in itself is not true, according to McInnes. We're going to dig a little bit more into those claims in a second, but there's another important character we need to know about, right?
Yeah, her name's Amanda Ghost and she's a producer. She's perhaps best well known as co-writing the song You're Beautiful by James Blunt.
This is just a crazy piece of trivia to this story, that this woman, this producer, is involved in this Aussie film, this local production, this global lawsuit, and also she co-wrote You're Beautiful.
Yeah, you loved that fact when I shared that with you. You were absolutely in stitches.
It just came out of left field, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's honestly not connected to this case, but I think it is an interesting little tidbit, you might say, for us to share. She, in this case, is connected because she was a producer on The Deb, the film that we're talking about. She's also the one that Wilson accused of doing the sexual harassment to McInnes. And it goes back to a situation that happened in September 2023.
Okay, so just to quickly recap with where we're at now, we're talking about 3 people involved in an Aussie movie called The Deb.
Correct.
We've got Rebel Wilson, who directed the film.
And she also had a role in it, so she was on screen as well.
On screen and off screen. Charlotte McInnes, who's the star of the movie, and Amanda Ghost, a producer on the film. What actually happened in the lead up to this case being filed? What is this alleged harassment and defamation moment?
So, like I said, we've got to go back to September 2023. On a particular day, McInnes and Ghost went for a swim together at Bondi Beach. And Ghost, the producer, she fell ill. She's got this condition that makes her allergic to really cold water. So McInnes brought her back to a nearby apartment and they warmed up by getting into a bath together, both wearing bathing suits. This is where it starts to get a little bit murky because both the people involved in that say that definitely happened.
Yep.
What is disputed is what happened afterwards.
Okay.
Wilson says that McInnes, as a young actress, then came to her and told her about what happened and said the situation made her uncomfortable. McInnes says that didn't happen. She said she did speak to Wilson about it and lots of other people in the cast and the crew, but she never made any allegations that she was in an uncomfortable situation at the time.
Okay, so no one is contesting the bath and that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So we all agree, or everyone involved agrees, that McInnes and Ghost went for a swim. It was cold. Ghost suffered a medical episode.
Mm-hmm.
They went and warmed up in a bath together wearing their cozies.
Yeah.
But it's what happened after and who said what.
Yeah.
So how does that private dispute on a film set then end up being in the public domain, being something we're discussing right now, being in the federal court?
Well, what happened was roughly half a year later, Wilson took to Instagram. She's got about 11 million followers over there. And she posted a video accusing the film's producers of, quote, inappropriate behavior towards the lead actress. McInnes came out immediately and publicly denied it, saying that no complaint was ever made to Wilson about the incident.
Right. So we learned about this from Rebel Wilson's Instagram to start with. What happened next?
So after McInnes made that public denial, Wilson doubled down. She posted 3 more times between September 2024 and July 2025. And each time she kind of escalated what the allegations were. An important note is she then said that McInnes had changed her tune on what had happened because Ghost had given her a record deal and also a starring role in a live production of The Great Gatsby.
Oh, wow. So Rebel Wilson is saying that McInnes went from coming to her disclosing that she felt uncomfortable to then changing her tune because career opportunities came up.
Yeah, so she's basically alleging that McInnes was bought out and changed her story because of those opportunities that she was given.
Right.
And really interesting thing that happened after this is that these websites were published. They were called amandaghost.com and amandaghostsucks.com. And they basically had all these allegations about past things that had happened with the producer. And they actually compared her to the convicted sex trafficker, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Okay, so a smear campaign, basically, a bunch of websites specifically designed targeting Ghost. Do we know where those websites came from?
That's what's being unpacked in court this week. A really interesting part of this is that the websites were created by an agency called the Agency Group. They're a publicity firm, and they're actually the people who were part of the case with Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively.
I was going to say, rings a bell.
Yeah, they're being accused in the US of sort of conducting a smear campaign against Blake Lively. So this is kind of their bread and butter. They kind of exist to, create publicity that negatively affects people's reputations.
And so part of this case includes the accusation that Wilson was involved in those smear campaign websites, or that she engaged that firm to launch those websites or deliberately kind of take away from Amanda Ghost's reputation. Why does Charlotte McInnes say that Rebel Wilson would do all of this? What's the motive?
So the court documents tell us that the motive is that Wilson wanted a writing credit on the Deb. She didn't have one, and she was basically using these sexual harassment claims as leverage to get Ghost to give her that writing credit.
Right.
Now, that's what that side says. Wilson obviously denies this. She says that she did all this because she was acting with concern for a young actress and that she wanted to see justice and a safe space on her film set.
Okay, so Wilson was a director and a star of this film, and she also was seeking allegedly a writing credit. And so this argument then is that there was some beef between Wilson and Ghost that inspired all of these posts in the first place. So we've had this series of events that's now led to legal action. What exactly is being argued in terms of the specifics of defamation under Australian law here?
Yeah, so in Australia, defamation is basically when you publish material that damages someone's reputation. It's a civil matter, not criminal, meaning there's not a chance of jail time for Wilson.
Yep.
It's mostly just financial penalties, and sometimes they can be forced to retract statements. The court can order Wilson to say, okay, everything I said was not true, if they do find so. And in this specific case, McInnes is suing over 4 Instagram posts that Wilson made. Her argument is that she was publicly identified as a victim of sexual harassment without her consent, and that the posts implied that she was a liar who basically traded her story for career opportunities. I actually went into her affidavit and she wrote in it, "I was angry that Rebel claims to be someone who stands up for women, but then was so maliciously and unfairly persisting with a narrative that painted me as a liar, prostitute, sellout, and whore."
Okay, so some really strong allegations being leveled at Wilson. How has she responded? What's her defense?
She's basically relying on what's called the truth defense, and that just says that everything she said was true and that McInnes did come to her and did make a complaint to her saying that she felt uncomfortable and that she was acting in her best intentions to protect a young actor.
Hey, I'm Sam. I'm the co-founder of TDA. With one button, 82% of you who aren't subscribed to this YouTube channel can change that and help Australian media. Click subscribe. Now back to the video.
Okay, Elliot, this trial is playing out in court as we speak. What have we learnt from the proceedings?
Yeah, so the trial has been playing out in the federal court in Sydney. It's being live streamed on YouTube, which is just sort of evidence that it has a lot of public interest. I have definitely been watching when I can. And in the past 9 days, we've seen both McInnes and Wilson take the stand. McInnes repeatedly told the court that she never made a complaint to Wilson about ghosts, and she said that if anything, she would have used the words weird or bizarre, but not that it made her feel uncomfortable. There was also photos presented to the court of Wilson and McInnes together, smiling at lots of events after all of this played out, and they kind of used this as evidence that McInnes was lying and that she did have a good relationship with Rebel, but McInnes defended that by saying, "I was learning to survive how my interactions with Wilson after knowing what had been said about me."
It's also so interesting to me to think about the fact that there is a film at the center of this that, you know, was delayed by these proceedings, and that no matter which side of this case you were on, I suppose people would have had the best interests of the film at heart as well, thinking, you know, oh, we've got to kind of save some face here so the film can at least succeed. Wilson has taken the stand herself now. What has she said?
So she's denied everything, calling it absolute nonsense. She also called herself a champion of women and kind of pointed to the fact that the film she was directing was this big girl power intended to be blockbuster. I'm not sure how it'll do now with all of this. On the bath incident in particular, she said she was pretty shocked by it and that it damaged her friendship with Ghost. She also denied any involvement with the smear websites, and there was a bunch of evidence presented that kind of pointed to the fact that she was involved, but she just told the court, "I don't know anything about that." And that was kind of the recurring theme throughout her time giving testimony. That was actually something that was brought up by McInnes' legal team. They said, "You're being evasive and you're not answering any of our questions." But, you know, Wilson is a trained lawyer, and I think she knows it's the safest bet to just say, "I don't know," if there's something that's a little bit murky.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth mentioning there are other legal disputes surrounding this film unfolding and ongoing still in LA and overseas, right?
Yeah, that's correct. This is actually one of 3 active legal battles connected to the Deb. A group of producers, including Ghost, have actually sued Wilson over in California over more defamation stuff. And then over in the UK, the production company has accused Wilson of blocking the film's release.
Wow. It's a mess, isn't it? When you think about this local production that has become this global legal battle, where do things go from here?
So, I mean, the trial is about to wrap up shortly. From there, the judge will go away and take some time to consider their judgment. They will then decide if Wilson is in the wrong. If they do decide that, then there will be penalties to come after that, but that's one that we'll just have to wait a little while to find out what happens. In terms of the film that is playing in cinemas now, as I mentioned, I've only watched the trailer. I haven't seen the film, but from what I've seen, it looks pretty fun.
Yeah, it's such a shame because it's so rare to have big Aussie productions like that. And, you know, you just hope that people can still get behind the movie despite what's going on in the courts.
Agreed.
Elliot, thank you so much for unpacking that for us. It was no easy task, but you did an amazing job. And I think everyone will be well up to speed on what's going on with this movie now. We've got another little bit of news from the world of Hollywood to discuss. What's your tidbit?
So this is one you and I have been talking about a bit this week. It's absolutely gripped us. Basically, it's to do with the 4th season of The White Lotus.
Yep.
It's the anthology series by Mike White that, you know, follows people around the world at these fake hotels called The White Lotus.
Awful rich people doing awful things in beautiful places at a hotel chain.
Exactly. And the 4th season has started filming in the south of France. They were about 9 days into production of that. So more production drama for the pod today. And what happened was one of the actresses, Helena Bonham Carter, who you'll know from Harry Potter fame, Sweeney Todd.
Everything, Tim Burton.
Exactly. She pulled out. She has exited the show.
This is crazy.
We don't have an explanation as to why. I mean, we do have one, but it's very vague.
Oh, yeah. A HBO statement, super vague, saying there were some sort of creative differences, or a couple of days into filming, it became obvious that the character wasn't aligning with the rest of the story. But it was really abrupt. Like, she left the set after just a few days of being on the French Riviera to film. HBO said that Mike White, the series creator, writer, director, was reassessing, reworking to recast, and that we would get an update in the coming weeks. Lo and behold, 4 days later, Laura Dern is stepping up.
Who we love.
She's a longtime collaborator of Mike White's and a good friend, but it's not been a recast character. I think this is really interesting. It's a whole new character that they're writing. But Helena Bonham Carter was apparently a critical character to the narrative of the whole plot of season 4. So it sounds messy, but I'm very excited to learn more about what's actually gone on.
Who knows? You know, maybe this time next year we'll be discussing the legal case about the White Lotus.
Here's hoping for us and not for them. Elliot, thank you so much for taking us through all of that today.
Thanks, Em.
Thank you for listening. That's it for today's deep dive. We'll be back a little later with the evening news headlines. But until then, have a great day.